first sort of kinky t-shirt I ever came across. And it was at one of the early motorcycle runs for the Rocky Mountaineers that I was on as a youngster.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy had this shirt on, and I kept admiring it because I was so impressed with the logo.
Yeah.
And I kept being hit in the head with it so much that he took it off his back and gave it to me.
Wow.
It's from the Southern Cross Motorcycle Club,
Mm-hmm.
SCMC, is the Southern Cross thing.
Yeah.
So it used to be white. But in a way, this was the very first piece of leather-related anything I came across that became mine.
Yeah, yeah.
So somehow I thought, I have a bunch of other t-shirts that I did not bring, but somehow I thought this one would be appropriate to go with sort of everything else.
Absolutely. And the fact that it used to be white and is no longer is,
Yeah.
it's full of history. Let's say
It
that.
is indeed full of history.
Did you wear it frequently?
I wore it all the time.
Awesome.
I did, indeed, I wore it all the time. Then the next thing that I came across that I decided was necessary were these.
Okay.
These are my Wescos.
Yeah, and just for the audio recording on these, as you pull things out, I'm just going to describe them briefly. So these are Wesco boots, well worn, well loved, and now you can go ahead and tell us about them.
Rebuilt 3 times over the years. And due for rebuilding now, as a matter of fact, because this sole has died.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite scenes used to be to piss in one of these and then hold it up so that somebody could sort of, I could feed it to them. Well, that kind of ruined the inside. like it will do sometimes.
Yes. For wearing.
Had to go back. These are actually scratches from my cat, so they kind of don't count.
But they do.
But they do. So there are those.
Okay.
The next thing I came across was this. Who is it? Are you expecting something?
Nope.
Probably the wrong road. Yeah, I was looking for Glenn. Sorry. No worries.
Was this, because I had admired it. Again, I'm one of the guys that was at the run. I had never seen one before. And so I mail ordered it from the Mirror Cap and Regalia Company in Toronto, and it came. And then, of course, the challenge became to customize it, to make it my own. You can see the original Mirror Cap stuff on the inside of it, 6 7/8. And then I began adding things to it. When I would see things that I thought were hot, particularly these, which you don't see anymore. These are pigtails. Do you know about pigtails?
No.
You ever seen a pair?
Not on a cap before.
Well, they were pretty common. If you look at photos of guys in bike caps from the 60s, you'll see that they were fairly common. And people often say, what the hell are they for? Why? And I'm about to show you what they were for. The slide would come down. This would rotate over the top like this. And then you could put the cap on and cinch the slide up on it so that you could wear it on a motorcycle and not have it blow off your head.
Very practical.
Very practical. They look a little silly now, but back in the day they were essential. Riding
Sure.
gear.
Yeah, if you're going to ride.
And all that's left now is the piece that goes over the top. But this was the original.
I see. Yeah, right.
And I never liked the pigtails. Moved around to the side, so I put a piece of monofilament fish line in there so that they would stay put in the back. So.
Did you wear this a lot?
I did wear it a lot originally. This has been rebuilt because as you age, your head gets bigger. something I did not know. So in 2001 or something, I gave this cap to Troy Anicetti. And I asked Troy to rebuild the cap for me, which was a daunting challenge because nobody's ever, people don't do that.
Right.
But this cap is not just any cap, it's my cap. And so I thought, well, it should be rebuilt. So he rebuilt it. I can't even begin to remember what I paid to have him do that, but he did. I also did not want a device, this is a device, on it that everybody else had.
Yeah.
So for years there was nothing there. And then one day, my lover at the time, David Britton, said, I saw something in an antique store that I think you should see. And I said, okay, what was it? He said, I'm not going to tell you. And let's just go to the store and we'll shop around and see if it jumps out at you, kind of thing. So, eventually in the back there was a case and a bunch of stuff in it, and in the case, and I saw this. And I knew immediately that this was the piece. So, what is it, you might wonder?
That was my question.
This is the device of the Israeli Naval Commandos, the Navy SEALs. I've never seen another one like it. But I really think it's cool and unusual.
Why is it cool and unusual?
Because
why is it cool for you?
It's cool
explained
because
the
it's got
unusual.
wings on it, and
Yeah.
most of the devices have wings
Yeah.
that go on guys' caps, but these aren't just any wings, these are bat wings, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And bats fly at night, and so do we.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of associations with it, but mostly I have it on my cap because nobody else has it on their cap.
Very cool.
Is what it works out to. So the cap's going because if you're going to have the outfit, you have to have the whole outfit, right?
Absolutely.
So the next thing that came my way was actually the jacket. And this is the jacket. For years people asked me why I didn't have a motorcycle jacket. And I said, because I can't afford one. And they said, well, you can go down to Army Surplus Store and get one for $20. And I said, yeah, but I don't like those jackets. Those are cheap ass jackets, and I don't want one of those. I want a real jacket. And that meant in the day, a Toddler Jacket. This is a Toddler Jacket, Tauber jacket. It was a little leather manufactory that lived on Mission Street at about 9th in San Francisco. And those jackets were expensive. They were $104.
About what year, what decade?
75.
75.
So I went down and I tried about 6 or 7 of the Toddler jackets on. And this jacket originally had belt loops on it, but all the guys that were wearing sexy jackets didn't have belt loops or belts on their jackets, so I had the belt loops removed from my jacket. This jacket has been rebuilt 3 times. Troy has rebuilt it a bunch of times because it was in distress. And I also had him reline it as well. It comes right to the belt line. I mean, it's not a very practical jacket to ride in because it doesn't protect you from the wind.
Yeah.
But it looks fabulous. The only device that I wore on the jacket for many years is this device, which is the pin from the March on Washington, the thing I was very proud of.
87?
I had an 87 pin, and then it fell off the jacket, so that's the 93 pin.
Okay.
And I have for years looked for an 87 pin to replace that, but never found one. And if I came across one today and I still owned the jacket,
Yeah.
I would replace it. But that's a 93 pin.
Okay.
The rope was a gift from Earl Grist. Earl Grist was one of the frontline leather workers. He worked for Mr. S for many years. And he gifted that to me one day, and I thought it was such an extraordinary piece, just all by itself, that it deserved to be worn. So I decided I would wear it on my left side, through my left epaulette. And of course, it's red, so people make those associations, and it's rope, so people make those associations. But no one has ever asked me, what does rope on the left side mean? Because I guess if they were smart enough to wonder about the question, they didn't need to ask it. So nobody ever did ask me about it.
Well, they probably preferred their own fantasy of what that meant.
Yeah,
So
you might very well be true.
And so what does that mean to you?
It meant unusual. It meant unique.
Yes.
And it said to people that, yeah, I'm into fisting, and yeah, I am into rope.
And how long after you got the jacket did you get the rope?
That's an interesting question, and I did not anticipate that question.
Maybe rather than in years, you could, shortly after, was it a little while after?
This was a while after.
Okay.
Somehow this feels like it happened around maybe 90, well, it's on the left side, so it probably happened around 2000.
Okay.
15 years ago, maybe, something like that. This is not the original zipper. The original zipper was a more lightweight zipper like these, in the pockets and in the sleeves. But I wanted a heavy-duty garment zipper, so I had that replaced as well. And I didn't want nickel, because brass is a self-lubricating metal, and nickel is not. So nickel zippers tend to snag, brass ones never, ever do. But these are the original pulls, talon pulls. Anyway, so that's
beautiful.
That's the jacket.
The jacket.
The next thing I ended up with was the overlay for it. And this was the overlay that I wore for many years. I dated a guy named Steve Saunders, and Steve's overlay on the back had this device, which came from the Eagle in New York City. It was they sold these behind the counter at the bar in New York City, and as soon as I saw Steve's, I knew I had to have it. I wanted one like it. And so I wrote to the Eagle, and they sent me one, and there it is. And I've never seen another one.
I haven't either. The thousands of vests that I've looked at, I don't think that I've seen that.
Yeah, but Steve's had one, and I've never seen one except Steve's.
Wow.
And so I dated him, and I was, crazy about the guy, and I thought I should have one too. So there that is.
Yeah.
The holes in the overlay, in the shoulders and in the lapels, are such that it goes onto that jacket. It has some of the earlier important pins for me from 71, 72, the CMC Carnival in 74. That's from the Band of Brothers. The founder of the Band of Brothers decided that because I had such an influence on the scene in LA that I should be an honorary member. So that was pretty flattering. So I put it on there.
Yeah,
This was
neat.
Disciples of Discipline. This was from a bike ride that my lover and I went on in '84 at Badger Flats.
Yep. Brotherhood of Pain.
In Dallas.
Tom Spar. What's this one?
That's a motorcycle, National Motorcycle Club, I believe. ABATE was a program that took place originally in California to not have motorcycle helmets. And of course, I sold my Harley as soon as they passed the motorcycle helmet law, because I it didn't fit my sense of fashion and style to have a motorcycle cap. I wasn't about to wear one. This is from the Triangle in Denver, and that was the guy that owned the Triangle was a guy named Don Young originally, but before that he had a different bar called Don's Alley, and I was a bartender there when I was in undergrad school. So somehow I thought that should be there. These are the only pins that I wear. But I've got cups and cups of them at home. And
Sure.
one of these days I'll have them mounted on a piece of leather like this. Which
Did you-
You're not getting this piece of leather today.
Okay.
And I'll explain that
Okay.
later.
Did you get this overlay after you got the jacket?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two sort of polarities at the time were the uniform people, which were, you know, cops, military, CHP, blah, 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 and the outlaw biker types. It looked to me like the outlaw biker types were having a lot more fun. And they weren't so worried about their dry cleaning bill. I've tended to gravitate in that direction.
Yeah.
And so that required me to have an overlay.
Yes.
So there's the overlay. The next piece that I acquired, I thought doing this in order made sense.
I love it.
These are chaps. These were made by Sterling, the leather maker. He was the guy that invented chaps with zippers on the outside. And he lived and worked in Los Angeles. He was quite a colorful character. Very eccentric character. And he had been approached by members of the local riding club in Los Angeles because the zippers on the inside of their chaps were scratching up the gas tanks on their motorcycles. And so they proposed having zippers put on the outside if he could figure out the engineering. So he came to invent the chaps with zippers on the outside to spare gasoline tanks from scratches. So the guys that he had made the first two pair for were big, heavy-duty guys, probably guys that look not unlike myself now. And he wanted to advertise them, so I was his model for these chaps. And if you look in the back of drummer magazines from the period, and by the period I would mean 1976, 77, somewhere along in there, you'll see rather crude drawings of me wearing these chaps and that cap and those boots, wherever they went, as part of his, you know, the leather maker chaps with zippers on the outside.
So you were still living in San Francisco?
No, I was in LA. I moved to LA in '76.
Okay.
So these are those chaps. These are the chaps that I wore when I competed for IML. They close. He offered me snaps. I didn't want snaps. They close like this. And then these tuck. So that's the way they look when they're closed. So as I was training, my thighs got too big. And one night in the bar, my legs fell asleep and I went to take a step and I fell over. Toppled is actually the correct word.
Yeah.
Because both of my legs had fallen asleep, and I had been standing there in one position for so long, I didn't realize that they had fallen asleep because they were so fucking tight on my thighs, because I was a big muscle boy in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Troy Anesthetti and I said, Troy, you need to open these up for me because I'm not about to retire them. So Troy looked at the way the line of the what are these called?
Thighs.
Yes, but they have muscle names,
Mm.
and I can't remember them. Anyway, the way that the
Quads.
quads, thank
Quads.
you, the way the quads behave, and put lines and worked all that out, and he opened these up for me so that I could wear them, continue to wear them, either with or without Levi's.
Yeah.
As far as I know, this is the only pair of chaps this has ever been done to.
Yeah, I haven't seen that before. And when was that alteration made?
That would have been, well, let me think about that for a minute. You know, Troy would probably know,
Yeah.
since I'm sure he's never done it for anyone else.
Before you competed?
No, after.
After. Okay.
After, so probably 90. Well, wait a minute. Let me just think about that, because there's that IML where it was the 20th anniversary. So what year would that have been?
98.
So in '98, I was on the stage with all the other IMLs
Yep.
that had shown up that year, and I'm wearing these chaps with the slits.
Okay.
So
Sometime
it
in
must have been
between.
'98
Oh, that year. Okay.
or '97, '96, somewhere along in there, because that's when I was pretty big. So there these are. He insisted on making these with nickel zippers,
Mm-hmm.
and he would not make them with brass zippers.
Yeah.
He wanted these square pulls on both sides, and I wouldn't have that. I wanted them only on my left side, so that's why there's only one on one side and none on the other,
Yeah.
because I was a purist
Mm-hmm.
in those days.
Thank you.
The next piece were these. These are Saddle Patch Levi's. I did compete in these. They weren't quite so tattered then.
Mm-hmm.
These were made by Larry Hunt. Larry Hunt was one of the leather archives of Museum Centurions, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph Bean credited Larry with the creation of the modern standard Leatherman's look. Jacket, overlay, cap. And I had seen these in Tom of Finland drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked Larry if he could make a pair of these for me, and he did. He made 2 pair. Shortly after I won IML, I was in the Gauntlet Bar in San Francisco, now the Eagle. And Tom of Finland happened to be in town with Dirk Daner. And I was up on stage doing something, I can't remember what it was, and I was wearing these pants. And Tom told Dirk that he wanted to meet me. So we met, and Tom said, those pants are very interesting. Where did you get them? I said, I got them from you, Tom. These came right out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And he was embarrassed by that because he was a very humble guy. But he inspired the pants, so it was really interesting to see that sort of come full circle. Tom later photographed me wearing these pants and drew me. So I'm actually a Tom Finland refrigerator magnet.
Yes.
which of course is such a rare privilege. I mean, doesn't everybody
Did he
long?
draw you in these jeans?
Yeah,
Were these, if you remember, Levi's that you had and
Yeah.
were wearing and then gave to Larry, or did Larry select the jeans and
no,
the
these
leather?
were jeans that already fit like
Yeah, right.
skin
Mm-hmm.
on me, and I think they have a 20. I can't even read.
Yeah, it's not even legible.
Can't
The
say
sizes
it's not
anymore.
even legible, but I mean that's a small waist.
It is.
Makes me feel like the old lady in Titanic. Wasn't I a dish?
Well, I've seen the pictures. Yes, you were.
There you go. So, with those boots and those pants and that overlay and a shirt like this, it was a standard look.
Yes.
Particularly along with the cap. I think the next piece I came up with, and this is an odd thing to have in this particular collection. I was always on the lookout for unconventional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was a device for my cap or the patch on the back of my overlay, I didn't want to fit in
Mm-hmm.
with the rest of the crew somehow. I always wanted to be distinctive. So whenever I found something that was unusual and distinctive, I grabbed it. And this, what the hell was in there? I wonder if those still work. Anyway, this is a vest that I wore for a long time.
Yeah.
And I just thought I'd throw it in because it's really a very interesting design. When you
Unique.
think about it, it's very unique. And it would be interesting to have this vest reproduced. Troy could do this easily.
It's beautiful.
It is really quite special when you think about it. And I've never seen another one like it anywhere. I had the buttons removed
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
on purpose because it ruins the line.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about style, you know. And then we come to this. Let me see if I can sort this out. I was getting ready to compete for IML, and I did not own a harness.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of people said, gee, Guy, you really need a harness. It just won't work if you don't have a harness, blah, blah, blah. And so I looked at the harnesses that were available. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. And then that would come across the side.
I looked at the harnesses that were available and didn't see anything that I liked. One day I walked into a leather store, and there were some belts that had this arrow buckle, and I thought it was a very interesting buckle. I'd never seen anything quite like it, and always looking for something distinctive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asked who'd made it, and I was given this person's name and contact information. And so I went to visit them, and I commissioned this harness, unlike any other harness ever, anywhere. And he built it. And I took it to IML. I had it on. I'd never worn a harness before. I felt self-conscious in it.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time I had it on was at the very end when they called the winners, and I had my leather jacket over the top of it, so it was obscured.
Yeah.
But shortly thereafter, it fell apart.
Mm.
Oh no, wait a minute, that's not right. It had fallen apart already before the competition, and I was upset about that. So I took all the pieces of it to Troy, and I said, Troy, can you reproduce this? And he said, yeah. So he took all the hardware off of it. This piece removes, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
in case you decide you don't want something dangling down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
This piece comes off. so that it looked, but I wanted something distinctive,
Yeah.
and this qualifies as that. It's a little bit glitzy.
And you had it, so you had this made shortly before you competed.
Right.
Did you ever wear it after?
Once.
Just one
There's
time.
actually a photograph of me in it that I came across not long ago, which I'll have to send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there's that.
And this bottom piece was always only just to have something hanging down. There was
Yes.
never a strap that came down
No,
around the back.
never.
Like that, of course.
So there that is.
That's a beautiful harness.
It is pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other piece I had Troy make for me for the contest was this, because I did not own a leather jockstrap. And quilting in those days was still something kind of new, so he built this for me. And I competed in this. There are lots of photographs of me wearing this thing back as a kind of interesting, I mean, it's one of a kind. And of course, to get in and out of it, you have to pull the pin
There you go.
on the hinge
Mm-hmm.
and step into it very carefully, I might add. And then you have to line this up such that it doesn't pinch. Not an easy piece. But it's all about how it looks, don't you know?
When you're competing, sure. Did you wear it much after?
I never wore it again. Because it's not me.
Right. But you had to have it.
But I had to have it to compete. Also during the Larry Hunt era, I had Larry Hunt make a pair of leather pants for me, which I did not have. This is the last pair of pants that Larry Hunt made before he died. Before he died in a seam, I should add.
Oh, I don't know that story, but that's probably a story for another day.
That's a story for another day. It's a long story and very painful to tell.
Yeah.
But there they are. I haven't had them on since 2001. And they hung in my closet.
Were they ever altered?
Never. Never altered. That's it.
Did you compete in these?
I did.
Maybe a good story for today is about Troy. I know Troy, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how you met him and how it came to be that you looked to him for many, if not all, of your alterations and work that you needed. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I don't remember how I met Troy. But there was something about Troy that told me that he was a prima donna and also an extremely exacting and talented artist. Troy had a formal background in fashion and understood the construction of garments in a way that people who don't have that kind of a background don't get. And so, despite the fact that he's temperamental, and he's still a little bit temperamental, I understand, but at the time he was unbelievably temperamental. He also built 2 vests for me for the competition, both of which I have since given away. Actually, Little P has one. And Troy's going to alter it for him. And I gave the other one, and they're stage vests. They're not like that vest.
Yeah.
They're cut in a very weird way. They have a big midriff, exposed midriff. The nipples are covered, and it has it's a piece of stage wear. I mean, you'd never wear it, or bar wear maybe. There isn't the slightest thing about it that's practical or street wear. Would look ridiculous on the street, but it looks great on a stage. Anyway, he built 2 of those for me. And when he was building the vests for me prior to the IML competition that I won, created a muslin, you know, because if you look at my shoulders, you will see that when I'm just standing at rest, one of my shoulders is higher than the other. You don't really notice it if you're not looking at me.
Oh, right.
When you're looking straight at me,
I
you
can
can see that
absolutely.
it's different.
Right.
And that means that stuff that's off the rack doesn't look right on me, especially on stage.
Yeah.
So the vests had to be custom built for me so that they would correct this visual problem from the back of an auditorium with
Yeah.
3,000 people watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Have to think about how you look at a distance. At least I thought I should think about how I should look at a distance. And so he made those kinds of corrections for me.
Yeah.
And because of his background in fashion, I trusted him to do that. So I have some other leather. I have this piece
That we're sitting on.
that we're sitting on, which I inherited from Larry Hunt when he died. And I have that piece, which I always travel with. Jim Kane, now we go to the Jim Kane material. Jim Kane, when I became Jim Kane's protege, Jim presented me, this goes with that stuff, and you get to have this, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Jim Kane presented me with a quarter hide of cabretta leather, which he had folded up into a square, something not unlike that. And it had a piece of boot lace thong tied with a bow. And he presented it to me. One of the ways that Jim taught me was he would create these little, almost like Zen koans. And he presented it to me and he'd say, here, when you know all the ways there are to play with this, then you can call yourself a Tom. And so I realized it was more than a piece of leather.
Mm-hmm.
It was graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not that piece of leather. That piece of leather has long since been retired with honor, and someday it will go to the museum. But as each one of its successors, as each one of them would die, I would get a new quarter hide of cabretta, and I would wrap the two of them together.
The old one and the new
The
one.
old one and the new one, and let it sit for a while, and then I would unwrap the old one and retire it, and would travel with the new one. This is the fourth iteration of that. So the spirit of all of those seeds
Yeah.
somehow,
Absorb whatever word you want to use.
whatever
Yeah.
word you want to use. So I'm not done traveling yet,
Mm-hmm.
so this will be